Greg Garza, good morning.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
All right, so what's in the mug? What's in the mug this morning?
As always, coffee. Second
Okay.
cup. I still got to open my eyes a little bit. I think it's the first day I've slept in since, been a while.
Nothing wrong with that, brother.
Oh, yeah.
So I am in South Alabama. I am in the boss's childhood bedroom.
Okay.
And so I'm about 4 hours south of you and Jarrett this morning. And literally, since this is, I think this is going to be your last appearance before the calendar turns over, because unless Parky calls you next Friday morning and says, "Dude, I need you to cover for me for New Year's too."
That's fine.
How was 2022 for Beyond Goals?
It was great. I think for us,
how was 2022 for Beyond Goals for you guys?
Yeah, it was great. I think our first year in the books, a lot to look back on, a lot to be grateful for, a lot to continue to learn. But at the same time, I think, we created something wanting to give back to a game that gave so much to us. We've been able to do that. I think helping kids understand the value and vital key components of what it takes to not necessarily create success, but create some sort of consistency within their environment and path and journey that they are going to be on. So it's been an awesome experience, and hopefully much more to come within the next few years.
Jarrett, with Greg Garza.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my next question, Greg, is like, what's kind of the game plan for next year? What can people look forward to?
Yeah, of course. I think one thing for us is definitely focusing more on the nonprofit side. We love what we do. We can't complain about the for-profit side, but I think at the end of the day, you look at a lot of successful soccer players, or you look at the NFL, or you look at the NBA, you look at other sports and other sports players that come from different backgrounds, right? And you look at a lot of really great players within the world. You can look at even the World Cup, for example. A lot of great players that come from lower income communities or underprivileged communities that don't have the right support, don't have sometimes the right guidance, sometimes don't have whatever it might be to continue to create success within their careers or within their path and within their journey. And a lot of times those individuals and those children that are growing up in those environments need the right people within their path and within their journey to kind of help guide them throughout certain phases and throughout certain things that they go through within their own environment. And I think for us, we understand that, and we saw a lot of players within our careers. I definitely saw a lot of players within my career that have that God-given talent, but just unfortunately from where they come from, or for how they grew up, or they just didn't understand all those other key components that I just spoke about. So I think for Mike and I, we saw a lot of that within our careers. And like I said, we love the for-profit side, but I think focusing more so on the nonprofit and helping kids achieve their dreams and look back and say, hey, I was able to play a role and play a part in that kid's, not necessarily success, because at the end of the day, right, I think it goes hand in hand of, whether they become successful soccer players or not. That's I always say there's only one person who knows that answer, right? But it's these kids that are growing up in certain environments, whatever it is that they do, and understanding how important school is, and understanding how important, working in team environments is. There's going to be a moment in their life, in their adulthood life, of understanding those components. And I think that's where we come into play and kind of help them understand those things within life.
Any idea how many mentees you and Mike were able to reach out to and help this year? Is there a number that you can attach to it this year?
Of course. Individually, we got not active, but over the first year, probably close to about 250 kids individually. And within groups and teams, and working with Boys and Girls Club, and working with Soccer in the Streets, and working with different schools, we probably hit close to about 2,000 kids of just being able to speak to. So that's an awesome number. I think we want to continue to do that. We want to continue to aim. I think in our minds, the sky is the limit, but at the same time, still being able to give a message to a lot of these kids and a consistent message, right? It's one thing if you go to a school and speak to them just one time, right? It's another thing if you go and you speak to them over and over, and you have this continuity of seeing where they are and how the decision-making process is going for them, how their confidence building is going for them, what leadership qualities and traits they're building for themselves to be able to use in the future. And that's the beauty of it. For us, I think, the most gratifying part for me is seeing kids make change, right? Seeing kids understand the value of all the things that we go over and all the things that we speak about, and seeing them actually use it within the environment that they're in. And so that's been the best thing for me so far to see within the past year.
And we talk about going year over year, and I know from like a business perspective, that's just something we think about. But with kids, when we were kids, we're always thinking about like the immediate next moment versus the next year. How do you convey that to kids about like thinking about long-term stuff as opposed to just what's coming up in the next 5 minutes in life?
For sure. Yeah, most definitely. I think one major thing that I did as a kid and I still do was journaling, right? Helping kids understand the value of journaling, understanding writing something down, right? You see something that you really want and you might have it in your subconscious, you might have it in the back of your head, but writing it down allows you to understand, hey, that's a goal that I can create. That's an objective that I want to conquer. And that's something that we really want most kids that we speak to. And it goes differently for a lot of kids, right? A lot of kids feel really comfortable in doing like something like that, but some kids say, hey, I'd rather keep things in the back of my head. But I think one important thing that I look, and I use that own experience and that knowledge and wisdom that I had as a kid, and I was always writing things down, right? I journaled every single day. And when I moved to Brazil and I was 12, I was forced to by my mom, but at the end of the day, it really served something because I didn't realize I was writing down. My mom still has those journal entries, and I was technically writing down my future, right? I was writing down the decisions that I was going to make. I was writing down my dreams that were ultimately going to come true, and I was writing down, the things that I was going to do to kind of help conquer those dreams, and it kind of really stabilized a great mindset, and also really motivated me to do certain things within my career a little extra throughout the line.
What was it like when your mom said, hey, I still have these journal entries? Was it one of those moments where it's like, hey, I still have them, let me find them and give them to you? What was that like when you found out that your mom still had them?
It was one of those funny things to where she would go and probably read some of them and just take some goofy pictures and send them to me, and just be like, hey, look, you predicted this, right? I think that's the coolest part for me of just seeing, the things that I had written down that I had I had no recollection of writing. I knew I had to journal a lot of different things, the things that I wanted in my life at that young age, right? But I didn't realize some of the things. I completely forgot some of the things that I had written down. But being able for her to send those pictures and send a page of putting in the work, or having the ability to play in whatever this league may be, or I think one of the huge things for me is I always use the story for kids is playing in the Copa Libertadores, right? I got to lose a quarterfinal against Ronaldinho in the Copa Libertadores, and that's something that as a kid, I was watching YouTube had just started. YouTube had just come out, and for me, I was watching Ronaldinho videos all day long, right? And to be able to kind of share that moment with kids and say, hey, that a lot of those things that I probably wrote down was, one day I want to play on the stage that Ronaldinho plays on, and to get to say I got to play against that guy, 4 or 5 times within my career, and look back at some of those journal entries and probably use his name a lot for being one of my idols was pretty cool to go back and look at.
And so we're sitting here right now, not sitting outside. I'd be insane.
I hope you're not sitting outside, man.
No, No, everything is taken care of. How did you? I mean, aside from the physical aspects of playing in this weather, we know you. We've seen guys, we know you have as well, playing in some of this insane weather. Like, how do you deal with that? Not just physically, but like the mental side of dealing with the intense cold.
Man, to be honest with you, bud, I have absolutely no idea how I played in some of those games in Minnesota.
Yeah, that's the one that 2018 comes to mind.
The 27. I mean, both games. We played the 2017. Yeah. The 2017 game was the game that I just absolute blizzard throughout the game. And I believe that game was 6-0. That's the game that Miggy and Joseph just went absolutely off. That was the second game of our season. That was a solidifying experience of, hell yes, we have an absolute awesome team, right? And that was like the moment for us, at least all of us industrial, I say all us industrial American guys, right? That we're so satisfied with losing against Red Bull in our very first game, because we looked around in that locker room and we realized, holy crap, we have an amazing team. And all the other guys, I think, were so devastated, right? So emotional. All the South American guys, punching their lockers at Bobby Dodd, throwing their shin guards, throwing their cleats after the very first game of the season, right? It's a long MLS season. And then I think we go into that game and just absolutely annihilate Minnesota at their home opener in the MLS as well. So that'll be a game that you can always remember. And I think we absolutely just, crushed them. And it, like I said, it was a solidifying experience of us understanding. But to deal with the cold, all I remember in that game is I love to slide tackle, right? That was one of my favorite things to do as a defender. I didn't like to defend, but if I had to defend, I always wanted to get a good tackle in. And I just remember walking off that game, and it snowed so much that I remember there was a part of my shorts. My Adidas shorts of how thin they were, that was absolutely frozen. So on the right side of my shorts, my part of my shorts was absolutely frozen after the game. Like, you could break off a piece of the short. That's how cold it was, and that's how crazy the temperature was. But that 2018 game, what you mentioned, is actually a colder day. It didn't snow, but it was a colder day in Minnesota. We played around the same time. I believe it was our third or fourth game of the season, and we ended up winning that game as well. And I had dislocated my shoulder, I believe, in the 60th minute or 65th minute, and we'd already made all of our subs. And I just remember I had to stay on, and I just remember Tata just absolutely screaming at the top of his lungs, and I don't think he had realized that I had dislocated my shoulder. And I mean, I just remember that game of it being so cold that if it were probably a hot day, I probably wouldn't have been able to continue. But of how cold it was like I was already automatically putting ice on my shoulder during the game, and I was able to get through. And I just remember the pain afterwards, but getting into a warmer spot. But during the game, it was so cold. But so to tell you how to deal with those things, it was so cold that I got to dislocate my shoulder and continue playing 20 minutes of the game.
When it comes to dealing with the cold, since Jared has opened this door, when you were a younger player, were you the kind of guy that would sit there and just go be like the American football, the NFL lineman or the wide receiver that just goes out in shirt sleeves to try to make a statement? Or were you the kind of guy that was like, screw this, I'm dressing as warm as possible and as functional as possible? Did you try to make the young statement when you were younger and then get your senses about you?
Joseph Martinez was that NFL wide receiver right there, playing with in both of those Minnesota games. If you look back, I think Joseph is the only one playing in shorts in his short sleeve shirt, which was I still scored so many goals. I could not believe it. But I was the guy that tried to dress as warm as possible.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, yeah, and that's like the 2018 game sticks in my head for that reason. I remember you doing your shoulder in that. Just because I remember Minnesota put in like 50-something crosses in that game. Like I think Parkey and Chris McCann both had like 30 clearances. It just became basically playing head tennis the rest of the way.
That was a very difficult game, that 2018 game, and I'm glad we got to pull off a win there. I don't remember Could it have been LGP who gotten sent off? I don't remember who it was, or
I think it was LGP who got sent off. Yeah,
because I can tell you,
you're
absolutely
that was one of the like 5 times that he got sent off in 2018.
I can tell you. You talk about that locker room after the 2017 Red Bulls game and that feeling y'all had, because we were at a watch party in Marietta during the 18 game, and the sense from everybody at the watch party after the Minnesota game in 2018 was a similar feeling of like, I think everybody kind of looked around on the fan side and went, oh, we knew this team was good. Now we know this team has an absolute massive amount of grit to be able to go up there and weather that one. So no, that I think it was one of those that really stuck with a lot of people mentally of, oh, they can play pretty, but they can also knuckle down.
I would say that one, and probably, I mean, I didn't get to play in it, but I didn't get to play in it, but I would probably say the San Jose game where they came back. Within that 2018, that's got to be a game to always remember, and what you just said right there, Jared, of understanding the grit and understanding, it doesn't necessarily always have to be pretty to get a result, but that was a game to where it just flipped the switch, and you just look back and you say, okay, that's a championship team right there.
Do mentees understand the value of grit these days? Is there a generational thing involving grit? Or do they get the idea that you can grit and grind, or is that something that they have to be reminded of, do you think?
Definitely something they have to be reminded of, right? Yeah, I would say more so in today's world. You look at so many young players have an incredible amount of talent, but just sometimes missing that extra little piece of understanding that's such a small piece of it, right? That's a very small piece of it as you get into that higher level of play. It is more so that grit is what is always needed every single day in training, and that's what is the most important thing as well.
And I know it's not snowing outside right now, but considering you were all over the place in your career, do you ever miss the snow, or are you fine with just the cold weather without tons of snow?
You know what? I think I just remember signing for Cincinnati, landing in Cincinnati, and landing in the middle of a blizzard. And I just remember thinking to myself, what did I just do? I'm thinking, okay, what contract did I just sign of how cold it is going to be? Because my body, I don't care what you say. It doesn't matter if you grew up in Canada. It doesn't matter if you grew up in the Northeast. In my opinion, I don't think your body is ever immune. You can somehow get comfortable with it, I guess, and just get used to it. But I don't know how your body can become immune to the cold. I think you're always going to be cold, right? No matter what, right? And so that from I love playing, and if it could be 40s, 50s, I'm okay with that, right? The kind of gloomy weather it was yesterday, that's probably my favorite type of weather to play in, because I feel like you can just run forever. But to where you aren't able to feel your feet kick a ball, that for me, I do not enjoy.
I mean, especially, I imagine that thing, when you kick it in conditions like this, it feels like you're kicking a 20-pound rock.
Or you just don't feel absolutely anything at all, right? It's like you're gonna put in this cross and just hope for the best. I can't believe how cold it is. This has got to be record-breaking temperatures for Atlanta right now, right? It's got to be. I know it's the same. I drive to Dallas with my kids on Christmas Day, so I'm glad I'm not traveling in the airports right now, because I can only imagine.
No doubt. What is Christmas like for the Garzas?
Always just trying to bring together family, right? For myself, looking back throughout the days of when I played, there wasn't a lot of time in between, right? I mean, you looked at even when I was here in the MLS, it was finishing Christmas, and then you had January camp the second day of January, right? So you try to get family together as much as possible. And when I played in Mexico, it was the season was finished right at the end of December, or beginning middle of December, and you were starting preseason camp January 2nd, January 3rd. So gosh, it was always trying to just get the family as quickly as possible together, just to enjoy hopefully not a lot of stress, but getting everybody together and enjoying the festivities.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, it's about like enjoying all of that and then kind of like re-gearing your mind. How much time did you usually allow, like, before you kind of flipped the switch to get back into like preseason mode? Like, was it did you have to like ramp up to it, or was it, a certain time of year gets here and it's almost instinctive?
I would always say within the end of the years, you'd always think, you were still in preparation, right? Because with the new, with almost the no time of what you had with the end of the year, you kind of had to just continue that form and shape that you were already in. Whereas in the middle of the year, it was more so just, not wanting to look at a ball for, at least 10 days after you finish the whole entire season, right? You wanted to kind of, make priority of what was important in your life. And that, for me, that was obviously the family and the kids, and spend as much time with them before you started to ramp up in the off season. But during the end of the years, it was more so you were continuing to run every single day, continue to stay in shape.
What was the best soccer Christmas present you ever got?
Best soccer Christmas present I ever got, man. That was probably like a new ball every year. I probably ruined all the balls that I had when I was a kid because I was just kicking against the wall all day long. That was my parents had a wall that was connected to the driveway, and I mean that was me every single day. I was just watching a video of Berbatov the other day, of him explaining why his touch was so good, and he used the wall. And I mean, if I were to think about my qualities as a player, is that I had a pretty darn good touch, right? I could kick the ball up in the air and still keep it in the air if I wanted to. And that was because I would just nail the ball at the wall and still try and keep it up when I was a kid. And that was my whole entire childhood until I moved to Brazil.
And even with kids now, when you're working with kids in the current setup, I mean, how much do you emphasize that, like, in their free time, of like, hey, just go out and grab a ball and just go have it at your feet, go play, just mess around? And
that's an interesting question, because at the end of the day, it has to be them, right? It has to be them to make that decision. And that for us is that, we can always lean towards giving them, that best advice and saying, hey, this is what I did. And I always ask kids, when is the most important time that you can train? And the answer is when nobody is watching. And that's because you are the one making that ultimate decision and saying, I want to get better at what my passion is. I want to get better at, it doesn't, no one has to tell me. A coach doesn't have to tell me. My parents definitely don't have to tell me to go outside and kick a ball for a few minutes or an hour or 3 hours, or in my case, when I was a kid, until, it got dark. Right. And no one told me to do that. Right. That was what I wanted to do every single day. I wanted to finish homework and then hop outside and play until dark. And even if it was by myself. And that's something that you can, like I said, you can tell kids, you can advise kids, but at the end of the day, it is their ultimate decision to do so. And that's a huge difference maker in the line of, which kid really wants it, right? Which kid really, really wants to take it to the next level, and which kid is really, grabbing onto that opportunity and saying, this is what I want to do. And the kids that do decide to do those things and even are still, young pros, right? I always tell kids as well, if there was something that I thought within my last game that I wasn't, completely satisfied with, well, that next week of training, I would ask Joseph to stay after training every single day. And I would, hit 15 minutes of, 100 ball crosses, because that was something that I thought that I needed within my game. And there wasn't a coach that said, hey, Greg, you need to stay, you need to stay an extra 15 minutes today after training and work on some crosses. That was the decision that I was making, right? Even as a professional and even as a veteran, I guess you could say, within that point in time in my career. But those are the difference makers of guys that play at a top level and you can learn from, right? And that was probably what I learned as a very young player, is that the guys who always do a little bit extra are the guys that get a little bit further, right? And so that's kind of the way you can advise some young kids. But like I said, it's got to be them to make that ultimate decision.
All right. So for those that want to take the next step and learn from two of the best, and you and Michael Parkhurst, how do they do it at Beyond Goals?
Yes, it's easy. All you have to do is just reach out to us or just get registered and then go from there. Obviously, Michael is based in Ohio. I'm based here in Atlanta. We like to do things virtually, but always can do, whether you're based in either or, we can always do things in person and focus, like I said, from the get-go of focusing on those mental key components of what the game is and how to understand the vital aspects and assets that you can add to your game of understanding the importance of the mental game.
Greg, as always, it's great to have you and Michael on to talk about Beyond Goals mentoring and the Friday Free Kick. Have a fantastic Christmas and great New Year's. Be safe driving out to Texas with everybody, and make sure that the gifts that you're wishing for are under the tree, and we will catch up with you next time around. Thanks for hanging out, Greg.
Hey, thank you, guys. Hey, Merry Christmas to all you guys. Merry Christmas to everyone. And we will talk at the new year.
You got it, my friend. Be safe and enjoy what's going on off of camera right. Get back to focusing on the cup of coffee and camera right. We'll catch up soon.
See you.